So now let's talk about your budget and what you're going to pay for, what you're going to try to avoid paying for, and how to do that, how to execute that budget and seeing how much you can get without spending any money. First at the top of the list is your cast. And because you're going to have no money or very little money, then that means you're going to have to get your cast for free. And that means that your production is going to be non-union. And what that means is there's that union that you've heard about called SAG, the Screen Actors Guild. And with that union, there are a lot of requirements that come with that. And obviously one of those is pay, and it's going to be expensive and cost you a lot of money. But you're going to do this non-union. You're not going to leverage SAG. What that means is you're not going to be able to use actors who are part of the SAG union, or at least those that don't want to participate in a non-union film. By doing that, there's some things that you're going to be able to leverage and things that you're going to be able to avoid versus if you were a union movie with a union cast through SAG. If you have a non-union cast, you'll be able to obviously ask the cast to work for free or for very little. If you are paying your cast, you can pay them with avoiding pension and health costs or meal penalties that you'll have to think about. You're not going to have to address royalty terms. You're going to be able to just draw up a simple contract, and you're going to be able to ask your actors to bring their own wardrobe. So those are all things that if you're a union cast or have SAG actors, those are all difficult things that you have to navigate. With SAG, there are a lot more obstacles. There's a lot of paperwork that you have to fill out, various forms and contracts. Each day of shooting, you're going to have to send paperwork to the SAG office. Then there's pension and health. On top of your daily rate for the actors, you're going to be paying a percentage on top of that for pension and health. If you ask them to use their own wardrobes, you're going to encounter fees for that. After the film is wrapped and you start selling it, you'll have to document and provide royalties for the actors. You're going to be limited to an 8-hour day for the actors, or then you're going to encounter additional fees. There are meal penalties if you stop for lunch a little bit late after a certain hour count. There is a limitation on your turnaround time. That's from the time that you finish on one day until you start the next day. There are limitations or fees that you encounter with that. And I want to say, just because you're having a non-union cast doesn't mean that you should mistreat the actors or you shouldn't do some of these things that's required by SAG, but it gives you a little bit more grace, a little bit more breathing room. You should stop to feed your crew and feed your actors, every 5 to 6 hours. That's just kind and considerate and a necessity that you need to apply. You should consider turnaround time from the time you wrap one day until you begin the next day. But again, it just gives you a little bit more grace so that if you go just a little bit past, you're not encountering more fees. And I will say, though, that with a SAG cast, there are more options. There is a greater pool of talented actors to pull from, but that doesn't mean you're not going to be able to find folks who are good actors who are looking for an opportunity that can participate in your film. And if they are non-union, then that means that they're going to be hungry for work, that they're going to love the idea of being on screen for your film. And if it's one of the principal roles, what aspiring actor does not want a principal role in a movie and be willing to do that for very little to no day rate? So that's an opportunity for you and an opportunity for them. Now let's think about where you're going to find these actors. Where are they? Where do you start looking? How can you build relationships? How do you get to know them? Where can you post a casting call? There's several places that you can go to find them and to start building a network and to reach them so that you can post about this opportunity and then evaluate the talent who submit for the roles that you're posting. So let's take a look. There are several places to go to. Obviously, you can start with your friends and family if there are aspiring actors or folks who have connections to actors. Again, with those Facebook groups or other community groups around filmmaking and acting, look there. But then also look to your community theater, look to local media mixers, a college theater program, your local improv comedy troupes, or maybe a comedy club, churches that put on plays regularly, and then obviously your local talent agency. Even if you're having a non-union cast and you may not even be paying for the roles, Let the local agencies know. They might be looking for an opportunity for some of the talent they represent to have a significant role in a film that's going to boost their career and to boost their future opportunities that are paid. So don't be hesitant. They may say no thank you, but it doesn't hurt to reach out to them and ask. You may be a little unsure of how to word the request, or how to post for an audition, or how to post for a role. It's very simple. There are a lot of resources online, but in the downloads that you'll have with this course, you'll see a template that you can use for when you're contacting those agencies or when you're posting for an audition. That'll be helpful to let folks know that you're serious and communicate the most pertinent information to them. And then I encourage you to hold auditions and do that. You can do that in person. You can also do that by receiving video uploads that folks can send you. They can simply record themselves and text or email you the video file from their phone, or upload to YouTube and send you the link. But definitely hold auditions and have them send you performances. You'll need to send them a section of dialogue. Those are called the sides. You'll send them some dialogue to deliver and receive that back. And if you're really interested in somebody who submits and you would like to see a little bit more from them, you think that they might have potential, but you want them to do a little bit different read, don't hesitate to reach out to them and say, hey, we're considering you for this role. Would you mind resubmitting? And give them a little direction for you to evaluate. But if you want to hold physical auditions, there are a few different ways that you could do that, again, without having to spend money on the auditions. You can look for a local community center that you may have access to that would have no fee or a very small fee. Often your local library will allow you to book one of their rooms. Again, you can tap into a local place of worship that may allow you to use that space as well. And again, it's always free to hold those digital auditions utilizing like a virtual platform like Zoom or Skype or WebEx or something like that. Or you can simply have them send you their digital auditions via YouTube links, or just sending a video to your email. And when you're thinking about choosing your cast for your feature film, there are 3 keys that you're going to want to think about for choosing that cast. You want to think about availability. You want to think about type and influence. When I talk about availability, it's simply if they're going to be participating in this feature film, and if they're going to be especially one of the primary principal roles in your film, one of those 2 to 3 key speaking parts and main characters, then they're going to have a lot of availability, especially if there's not going to be money associated with it. If you're not able to pay them, or you're not able to pay them much, then it's a big commitment for them. So you're going to have to consider that when casting. There might be somebody that you really want to play the lead, but they're not going to be able to devote 5 or 10 or 15 days of their life to be able to do the film. So you're going to have to consider their availability, or maybe if they're a really great actor and you want them to be a part of it and they can't give you several days without pay to be a part of it, then you have to consider maybe there's a lesser role, but they could still participate and give you 1 or 2 days. And then that way you can leverage them into a secondary character and shoot out all their scenes maybe within a day. When we think about type, what I'm talking about is casting somebody who is already similar to your character. And you may say, I don't want to do typecasting or follow that or be too cliche or whatever. But this is a situation where if you're not dealing with super seasoned actors, then there's no harm in looking for somebody who, it's like, I would say not typecasting, but like casting. Somebody who is like that character already, and you're just looking for them to deliver in a way that's kind of an enhanced version of themselves, something that already feels like it's a match. So you want to consider that, and then that takes away a lot of the heavy lifting to consider for the actor and when you're casting that role. So that's availability and type. And then you're also going to want to think about influence. So is this person somehow going to be able to contribute to your marketing and distribution? Do they have a lot of social media followers? Are they well known? Do they have a network or a community that they're deeply connected with, that are supporters of them or that are related to them, that's not already part of your network, and you can leverage that? For our feature film, A Strange Brand of Happy, One of those considerations was Rebecca St. James. Rebecca St. James was cast in that movie, and she's very talented and had a great performance. And then the bonus with it was that she's also an influencer. She was also already well known within a certain community, and she had Grammy Awards to her name, and so there were people aware of her. So by her participating in the film, we were introduced to a subculture or an additional network that we may have not been able to reach otherwise to have awareness of the film. Some friends of mine who are in the process of making their feature film with no money, one of the ways that they leveraged this was there was somebody that they were considering for a main role in their film who is deeply involved with the local music scene in their area, and they were able to cast them. They were perfect for the role, and then they're also bringing that network that also will supply music for their film, but then also will rally folks to get excited about the film that otherwise wouldn't known of that. So that's the influence part. So you want to think about availability, type, and influence. With my movie Smells Like Community Spirit, we had $2,000 to work with. So I couldn't afford to pay for cast. But when I started looking for the cast, I had access to a local improv comedy community through a troupe that I performed with and friends that I had in that network. I looked at that. I looked at folks that were involved in local community theater and started to evaluate, again, availability, type, and influence. And our lead cast member for that film had a background in community theater, had a background in improv, and because he had a very comfortable, flexible job with a big corporation, he had a lot of vacation time to use. And when we're thinking about motives, not only for our investors, but for our cast and our crew, for him, his motive in this was, one, he was a friend of mine and wanted to support me, but also he had a passion for acting and performing. He didn't get to do that in his day job, but he was able to do that in his different hobbies. And so the opportunity for him to have a lead role in a movie was very attractive, and so much so that he took several days of his vacation time to use to act for free in the film. Similarly, the lead female in the film, she had a job that had a relatively flexible schedule. She had some vacation time that she had saved up, and again, her day job didn't get to tap into her creative desires and her desire to perform, but she had always done that with her hobbies on the evenings and weekends. And so she was willing to leverage some of her vacation time to participate in the film as well. I had some other folks who I wanted to use who were extremely talented, but again, they weren't available for a commitment of 6, 7, 8 days that the principal characters were going to require shooting for. So I was able to look for roles that were one-day appearances, and then they were able to commit to doing those roles, and it just required of them 8 hours or less on one day to participate and to do some scenes that way.